Hey everybody, it's Bust with Battles with Bust number 370, and today we're going to be doing battle in a Singleton Gauntlet. And so, a couple of notes on Singleton before we dive in. This is a format using the Eternal card pool, so all of the cards are available, and this is also a format to where you get to play 3 factions instead of 2. And I wanted to be kind of very clear with this. It's not always apparent when you get to play Eternal cards and when you don't, and I had a little bit of awkwardness with the deck builder. I wanted to pull it up really quick just to show you and to show the intern, and that if you go to the deck builder, click on new deck, come up to the top left and limit the thing to Singleton. And then if we go up and set it to Eternal, everything looks good, right? We have the blue border showing Eternal. Down here at the bottom, we have the 0 of 3 factions available. But if we go and start adding cards to our deck, so we'll add Annie, we'll add Zoe to our deck today, you can see that the number of regions down here at the bottom switches from 3 to 2. And so I don't want you to get kind of confused with the rules. You can switch it back. If you go and change the format to something else and then switch it back into Singleton, you will see that it does go back to 3 factions. And so since it wasn't fully clear on all of the elements of the format, I did want to go ahead and make that a little bit more clear for you. Hopefully you don't jump into these things with your standard deck, or maybe you do. If you're playing Singleton and standard, more power to you. The next thing I like to talk about in this format in terms of deck building is that the consistency just isn't here. And this is going to push a lot of people towards playing mid-rangey decks and people playing a lot of very powerful things. That's what we're going to be doing here today. We'll discuss that a little bit more in a moment, but the idea is, say we're playing Constructed, you want to put together the world's best aggro deck. So you automatically throw in 3 copies of Legion Rearguard, you put in 3 copies of Crimson Pigeon, you put in 3 copies of Legion Saboteur. You're like ready to go, you hit the queue, you start aggroing, good job. Now, you can't do that in Singleton. You can get up to the same numbers, right? You can say, okay, I have my Legion Rearguard, I have my Crimson Pigeon, I have my Legion Saboteur. Now I have to start adding in other stuff to get up to 9 1-drops. And so I add in Precious Pet, that's not so bad. I add in the Last Breath unit with Reforge, that's not so bad either. But as you move further and further down the line, you're getting to much worse units in comparison to Crimson Pigeon and in comparison to Legion Rearguard, that the consistency and strength of your deck just kind of declines a little bit. And so as you find yourself kind of limited in the quality of cards that you're able to play, you tend to gravitate more towards the good cards, if you will. And that just puts you in more of a mid-rangey spectrum in terms of what the decks are capable of doing. And so the format's going to be a little bit slower, and then kind of leveling up after that a little bit, knowing that the format's a little bit slower, people are going to be running these kind of very powerful things and very powerful effects. And so in terms of our deck, we're looking to build ourselves around Feel the Rush, and then we're looking to use the Priestess of Desert Light. These are going to be the very powerful things that we're looking to pull off, and then we'd like to pull that off as consistently as possible, and so we're playing a bunch of predicts as well, and so you're going to see the likes of Zillion, Ancient Preparations, Forsaken Bakai. We've got this handful of predict cards in here just to help us pull together our synergies a little bit quicker. We also want to stop our opponent from doing whatever ridiculous stuff they're trying to do, so we have the Rite of Negation and Puzzling Signpost to try and stop the spells, and then we have Quicksand and the likes of Harsh Winds to try and stop their unit-based shenanigans. And so what I'm kind of hoping with this deck is we are slow enough to where we have a really good game against all of the aggro decks. We have enough mid-rangey tools to be good against the other mid-rangey decks, so we can either go over top of them with Feel the Rush, we can outstat them with things like Avarosia and Hearthguard, and we have just these great ways to hopefully make our units bigger than the opponents, but we're going to lose to stuff like Karma. If we have to come out and play against a combo deck like Karma Set, we're really going to struggle, but we're hoping to be good between that band of decks, between things that think they're aggro into things that think they're mid-rangey, and then having a little bit of game against the kind of slower or the kind of faster control decks, but understanding that if you're playing a pure control deck, if you're playing something like Karma Set, you're going to come in and smash us. And so that's the idea with the deck. The last concepts that I wanted to call out with this is we have this nice kind of overwhelmed theme to it. We're out here playing our Ruin Runners and our Ancient Yetis. A lot of our champions have Overwhelm, and then we're bringing in this high-powered ability to double strike or deal double damage. And so we have a lot of, not a lot, we have one Papercraft Dragon, and we have one Curse of the Tomb. So if we are in a spot to where we've played Feel the Rush, we've got our 10-10 on the board, we have a way to immediately get to 20. Or if we're more realistically just attacking with like an 8-8 Overwhelm, then we can get that up to 16, and 16 should ideally be enough to close out the game. So, that's the idea we're playing. Mid-rangey stuff, lots of unit boosting, nice reactive tools, along with the ability to just blow out the opponent with some of these big spells or some of our double abilities. And so, that's the deck. That's what we're going to be doing battle with today. You know what we got to do before the battles begin, though. We got to pay the pay-to-win price, and we'd fallen behind just a little bit. I felt a little bit bad in the Runeterra Open. We leveled up Jax, we leveled up Ornn, and then they lost all of the games. And so sometimes you just can't pay to win hard enough, I guess. But there's still a couple of options within this deck. I forget entirely what it was. I thought it was like Siphoning Strike or something. Most of the stuff in here is already premium since we're just playing good cards as it is. And there we go. It's going to be the Siphoning Strike, leveled up and premium, looking good, looking shiny. Let's get ourselves into battle. And so I'm pretty sure we're good to go. I double-checked our deck into the Gauntlet before. Non-refundable, okay. Hitting double strikes with the singles. And it looks like we're in. Let's queue up, get to battle. All right, off we go. Let's see if we run into some kind of karma deck right from the get-go. I got some cool combos in here. I'm hoping we get to pull off some cool stuff. I was excited to play the Priestess. We have some ways to kind of boost her stats. That's one of the nice little combos you get out of the unit boosting stuff, in the sense with like the Priestess. She's the 4/4. She takes 4 damage when she does the summon, but if you give her +1/+1, or you give her a little bit of bonus health or something, then she can survive that damage and give you a secondary champion summon. And so wanted to get some of those sweet themes into the deck, see if the recently... you have to call it a nerf for the Priestess, right? She used to just function wrong to where it didn't even consider the deck building stuff, and she just summoned all of the units anyways. But she has been nerfed to function properly, and so it feels appropriate to bring her out in this Singleton format. Poor thing. What a bummer, man. If you, I bet the Priestess has to feel bad if you're like bugged and you're still not good enough to see play, and then you just get essentially a pretty big nerf to take away that deck building restriction, or I should say add back in the deck building restriction, and then people still don't want to play. Kind of a bummer. So let's see what's happening here. This is one of these odd spots to where the cancel button went away, so we should be queued up. There, it came back. And I typically restart the game if the cancel button goes away, and then it makes the sound like you're about to jump into the game itself. That one didn't make a game noise, and so I didn't restart the game. I think the queue was just kind of fixing itself. Got the long ones today. Got all those Runeterra pros out there bitching about the MMR based matchmaking. This is probably what we get, right? That's what happens. There we go. All right. Opponent has been found. Opponent realized that you can play 3 factions as well. They should be ready to go, ready to battle. So let's see what we can do here. Good start with Nora. I would expect her to fare pretty reasonably well against what looks to be some kind of probably aggro, maybe a bit of a plunder kind of tie to it style deck. So let's see what she can do. We can pick up the Conchologist out of this. I feel like if we get ourselves in this mindset to where we just try to prevent every single point of damage that we can, we'll probably be okay. We're going to massively outvalue this person. And so if we just have a little bit of time, then we're going to do A-okay in this one. All right. Odd set of cards. I'm actually thinking of picking up this Crackling Ice. Grant an enemy Frostbite me at the next round start. Oh, it doesn't Frostbite right now. We could just pick up the Feral Prescience, but I don't think we need to predict out of this hand. Okay, let's take the Crackling Ice. Oh, it's next round. Shit, I thought we were going to be able to cast it. I had this vision that we're going to try and take down the Boom Crew rookie. And it was not a good vision. I did not see the right kind of stars from that one. All right, we'll still see how this plays out. With the poor usage of Crackling Ice in mind, we can say add in Nora. And then if opponent doesn't open attack next turn, we can clear out their board with the Spirits Unleashed. And I'm pretty on board with that. So that should be reasonable, I believe. Let's leave the Bakai at home. I don't think opponent wants to open attack with this board, but I feel like if we just kind of like throw the Bakai away, it gives them a much bigger incentive to do so. All right. Do some of that damage preventing. So we'll clear out the board. We could technically prevent one more damage by blocking the crowd favorite with Nora, but it doesn't get that unit off of the board, and so I'm not nearly as interested in it. What do we got now? Kind of a turd. not the greatest collection of cards here, but I think this is okay. Let's go with the Fixin' 5000. That should let us be able to attack. I ultimately worry that if we pick up a card like Combat Reel does look pretty good here in this spot, as we have all these kind of expensive things in hand that we're trying to cast, but I don't really want to be attacking and then having opponent just like trade and refill the board more than we can fill it. And so I think it's okay to sit at home. Then opponent stopped on the mana, so I just didn't attack. Not really expecting these kind of cards to be coming at us, but it is what it is. Get our Priestess on board. We're not going to block with her, but I think we're in a decent spot here. We're going to get him. This is when we're finally going to drop the Crackling Ice. Finally get that Frostbite on the board. Good job, Priestess. Good job. Big old Udyr coming in. Hearthblood Mender. Oh, no. We picked up this combo, right? We have the Regenerate stance that we can drop onto the Priestess of Desert Light. That's perfect. Let's go big. Let's load up the highlight reel, am I right? We're gonna load up Udyr with the Papercraft Dragon, getting him in that beautiful, beautiful OTK range. Make opponent throw something down in front of him. And off we go. Off to the races.
For the glory of Noxus.
Oh, I thought it just frostbites it. I thought it put vulnerable on this guy. Fucking fine, dumb cards. Fucking fine. Is that wrong on that? I thought it put frostbite and vulnerable. No, just grant an enemy frostbite at round start? What a terrible effing card. It doesn't get much worse than that, man. Alright, what is this, a swindle? Manifest a follower. Okay, sure. Alright, Udyr. Give him those big strikes. The play here is to give Udyr Overwhelm, but that's not nearly as fun. And so let's just put the Regenerate stance onto the Priestess. See what we can do from here. Oh, don't you be responding, bro. Alright, alright. Gotta feel good about that. So she's gonna regenerate up. Summon us a fresh champion. What up, action? Picking up Trundle. This is looking good. We gotta start going in for the kill. And so we'll drop the Trundle. I'm gonna look to try and overwhelm with him next turn. So we'll drop the Pillar next turn and try and pull off the Curse of the Tomb onto Trundle. Get the big overwhelm and run through with that. But again, as long as we just don't die, we should be fairly okay here. Interesting. Just going for that damage off the Plunder Poro. A little interesting. Sure. So the Trundle plan is no more, but Yeah, this is gonna be the Udyr of the day, right? If we get to, alright, we're definitely getting to do it now. We're gonna get to overwhelm stance the Udyr and then double damage him next turn. Alright,
No, it's here somewhere.
load up the highlight reel, my fans. Load it up. Come on, bud. You want to hang out? It's kitty cat. He's just doing his thing. He walks to one side and meows. You rotate a little bit so he can jump up. He says, "No, thank you. I'll walk. I'll walk around to the other side." Poor guy. You just need some pets. All right, and Tryndamere. Okay, okay. Now it's a party. Get him. He's not gonna. Is he gonna let us curse the tomb? Lame. All right. GG. Good stuff. I'm glad we got a lot of the combos out of the way right in the first game. Feels pretty good when it comes together like that. All right, next battle. Man, feels weird. We've only done one video in the past 3 days. We usually get them out every day. Now, granted, I do typically take the day off before the Runeterra Open events, just sit around and play without having to talk through all my terrible plays and stuff. So that was normal, but I had to do some kind of serious adulting over the past few days. We had Mother's Day yesterday, and so I didn't get to record then. I was kind of planning on it, but I had to do a bunch of yard work. It's you can't say no, man. The wife wants to do yard work on Mother's Day. You gotta say okay. So I got to go out there and do a bunch of fucking manual labor. Love it. I got this little mark on my hand. Look at that. Look at the stresses and the problems and the dangers of old FTP Bust having to having to till out some ground, get one of those little hand tillers and crank it up, churn the dirt up a little bit. Managed to do that, but it's probably just kind of payback from the day before. And so as we went a solid 0-3 in the Runeterra Open, technically 2-3 because we had the buys right, but realistically we went 0-3. So it's like, well, fuck, I got to find something to do for the rest of the day, and it came up and found me in the sense that the toilet seat broke, and so I got in a bit of trouble with that, and so the toilet seat broke. I'm like 90% certain that I did it, and then like 10% certain that one of like the kiddos running around the house did it. But I'm pretty certain it was me. But you know, the wife discovered it. She said, "Hey, the toilet seat's broken. You gotta fix it." Okay, whatever. But some of these little childrens were running around, and we have to tell them, you know, "Hey, be careful if you're coming in here and taking a shit. The toilet seat's broke." And so they of course have questions, and so me and my infinite wisdom, I just start to say stuff like, "Yeah, the wife was taking a massive shit and she broke the toilet seat," and she gets mad because, you know, kids being kids, they're just gonna run around and start repeating all that shit, and so they're gonna go home and tell the parentals that, hey, Bust's wife was taking a massive duker and she dropped a breakage onto the toilet seat. And so she was rightfully a little bit upset about that. I don't blame her, but that's what I got to spend my day doing, is fixing the toilet seat. Got to take a trip to Home Depot, analyze all the options. I got the wrong thing, of course, but it should do us for another little bit of time. And then that was the punishment I got. He said, "Hey, Bust, you gotta go do yard work because you're spreading lies about poop scenarios and breaking toilets." So that's tough. It's the way the cookie crumbles, though, you know. All right, back into the action, though. We are up against this Karma deck, and I took a Troll Chant. It's a bit counterintuitive to pick Troll Chants in this match, but I feel like we want this action to stick around for as long as we can. And so what I'm going to be looking to do here is I want to get the Pokestick down onto the Acorn. I don't want him cheapening up whatever ridiculous spells he's going to be playing. It's going to be things like Feel the Rush. It's going to be Augmented Experiment, whatever the big P and Z spell's called. So I'd like to get this Acorn off the board and then get action down a couple turns from now. Opponents really got out in front of us, though. This is a little bit scary with the Acorn coming down. But now that we picked up Elixir of Iron, we can safely deploy the action. See if he can't eat up a Mystic Shot or something and get a little bit of mana advantage here.
This all we got? Hey, I've done more with less.
All right, what'd you go? Fearsome? You got it.
Justice.
All right, well, in with the action. Let's see what we can do. Come on, bud. Oh, we'll just pick him up. There we go. It's this guy. It says, "What up, internet? This is why I don't like to jump up." He's a delightful kitty, though. All right, what you doing, my dude? Big decision right here. Big decision. I don't blame you for taking hours. All right, he says, "Bring the damage upon me." I'm gonna go aggro mode with my Piltover block, my Piltover Castaway. All right, Revna coming in. We're about to get real mid-rangey up in this beast, and so we'll have to try and preserve our units a little bit, see if we can't drag this out. Now, the kind of saving grace for us, hopefully, is that those spells, he's only got one copy of them. He's only got one copy of the Augmented Experiment. He's only got one copy of what you called the Feel the Rush, and so there is a very reasonable chance that he just hasn't drawn them. But I was kind of considering playing the Troll Chant, but I like banking up the mana at this point. If we're going to play Trundle next turn and then play Revna 2 turns from now, it's nice to at least have that little bit of a bank so that we can protect our spells, protect our units with the spells. So you got to think on this a little more. We might be playing in Worlds right now. I don't know. Why did that one cost 2 less? That was his spell, right? Cost 2 less because of the Acorn? Can't tell off of the Oracle's Eye. That's a bit of a bummer. But I've been watching this stance swap to see if that was going to be the card that gets cheapened up. But that's the only thing that he's played up to this point, right? That Winter's Mana Gem. And so he shouldn't have any of the big spells in his hand at this stage. And then we did just pick up Rite of Negation. Fantastic way to shut down a Feel the Rush. So I'm fine to lose Forsaken Bakai. He's not one of our high-valued plays at this point. You did his job. You did your work. You came down, traded with a 6-drop, and got a Predict in. It's not a bad day.
Won't need tools for this.
Okay. Sure thing. So, thinking into this next turn, I mean, I think we should be safe to just drop Revna. There's not a ton of spells that he can play that we really need to pop with Rite of Negation on this next turn. So I worry a little bit as, opponent has played their Revna. All of their unit draws from this point forward are just going to be super good. And just sitting around while the opponent's drawing high-quality cards and we're not is pretty dangerous. And so, since he's out of range of that Feel the Rush, it feels like a pretty good time to come in and drop her. And the Aloof turns up. Fantastic way to try and get the opponent to discard some expensive spells. So always say it's scary seeing Karma come on board, but he is nowhere near enlightened. And so if we're able to kill her off, that's going to be quite powerful. Definitely don't want them rolling into turn 10 with Karma on board. Very surprised to see her come down so early. Like if you're playing Karma set and constructed, you can kind of fuck around with that first Karma. You know, if you need to play her defensively on turn 5 or turn 6, it's kind of whatever because you got more copies of her. But in Singleton, this is it. Take forever, why don't you? Truer words have never been spoken, Trundle. We are taking forever here. And these are very big decisions. A lot on the line. Gotta think long and hard on all of these plays. He probably knows. Maybe he knows, man. This is one of our followers out here. He knows Bust gets all salty whenever you play slow as fuck in games that don't matter. He says, I'm getting my time in the spotlight. People be watching me. They say, Asmael Capo. Bring in the thunder on the Bust stream. Oh, changed his mind. Okay, there we go. We got an equipment. Better stop and think about this one again. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and throw this block down in front of Karma. I want all of our units to be threatening her in terms of whenever we get into combat, she's just not available to block. And then if she wants to attack next turn, she's going to die to whatever comes out in front. And so I think that's okay. And then on this turn, we get to lead off with the aloof so that we can, if the opponent has a big card in hand, we can just make them discard it. It's nice seeing the Priestess turn up, but she's a little bit too slow at this point.
You dropped something. I dropped everything.
We pick up a Nora. Opponent discards a Dragon's Rage. Kind of a bummer. Kind of a bummer.
Look, a thing.
Opponent aloofs. We're going to lose our Ice Pillar. That's fine. God, why are his units all bigger than ours? Aloof is just big because of action. He wasn't one of our draws for the round. Ah, that's nasty.
Cup of tea? Fine by me.
All right, well, I'm going to add in Nora, and then we're just going to attack with our bad units is the plan. We don't have any ways to interact with what's on board, and so Nora can most certainly come in. I'm pretty done with action. He's going to generate the... Sure, he's going to generate the bigger stance, and then if he dies in combat and sends the Anaka back into hand. That's where I would kind of prefer it to be.
Go away.
Opponent's real close to lethal. If we can just get into the next turn and then have an overwhelm unit, we'll have a lot of options to close out the game. Interesting. Okay.
Talk is worthless. We are what we do.
Give me that relic of power. Anything cool? Not really. Like, I'm not opposed to the Conchologist, I guess. It's got a lot of stats, and there's a reasonable amount of spells that we could pick up. But really just kind of looking for an overwhelm at this point. Ideally, we would be open attacking next turn, so that whatever he does with Karma, you know, if he gets to double up burst spells with Karma, fine. But if he gets to double up like slower spells, that tends to be problematic. Let's see what he's got. Master Yi, do not care about him. I'm kind of wanting to get the Priestess on board. Like, we can still cast one spell if we drop the Priestess. I think that's okay. It does kind of eliminate our ability to beat Karma in combat. And we need to lose a unit if we want to get this summon, but I can't imagine an opponent like goes through this turn without attacking. We should be able to throw at least one unit away. It just feels like if you're in the mindset of playing against something like Karma Set, where they're playing a big kind of Karma combo deck, they're probably very okay with just passing here, but it doesn't seem like that's what opponent's doing. Like, I know they have like this package that looks like a Karma deck in it, but he hasn't played in a way that makes it really feel like he cares about Karma. But we got to keep the rest of this mana banked up. It's a little dangerous coming into this turn with the mana that we had. Interesting. No attack. Sure. All right, there's the Karma flip. And I'm kind of worried about this. So what happened? Do we... Like, Zillion came into hand. You see on the Oracle's Eye? Does she just not do it if there's no space? Oh, draw a champion. Okay, so we drew the Zillion, but it didn't get summoned. Gotcha. All right, so no real ways to come in and win the game this turn. I think we need to start with the Conchologist. We could, I mean, we do have the Blood Letters. I guess we can see what that does. Place the landmark, kill Revna. Get that extra space out here now. See what dumb stuff Karma does. That was a decision, I guess. That was a decision, I guess. Rando 10 mana spell. The bummer here is we don't have the mana to double up with our Zolani, so this turn's not nearly as good as we want or need it to be. We just have to stop here. Ugh, it's brutal. Oh, and he blocks with Karma. I gotta quit making assumptions about what this opponent's gonna do. I gotta stop. It's so mind blowing to me that we see Karma used in such a way. Oh boy. Okay. That was a pretty good one to generate. So dangerous making blocks like this with Karma. It's like any combat trick takes her down and you're in such a bad spot. You have all these other shitty cards that you can block with. But alright. Look at that. We picked up one of our few ways to actually answer a Karma. I guess we could look to Three Sisters and Tomb her away, but Siphoning Strike has a lot more style to it. Probably shouldn't have even counterspelled that the recall spell. Not certain. Like it's not like he was in a spot to where he's going to kill us. The place where you have to worry about it is if they, like, we open attack and then opponent does something that doesn't matter and they pass it back to us, then we spend a bunch of mana, then they play the upheaval, and then like the only unit on board is Karma and we don't have any mana to replay units. Like, that's the ideal thing you're looking for that spell. And we probably could have just let it happen and then replayed a bunch of units afterwards and been okay. I just got so excited seeing an opponent tap out for no reason. It was like, oh, that's what you're doing. You're tapping out for no reason? We have to win the game at this point then. And it just wasn't quite the case. All right, let's give this a shot. I think with this, the ideal thing is, like, I don't expect that this is going to work. It's probably going to get caught up in some kind of spell. But ideally, opponent's not going to be able to play any more cards after this. And so if they have to play a Will of Ionia or a Tag Out or like a Three Sisters into Flash Freeze or something, ideally, they're just not going to have the mana to get out in front of this. Oh my god, if he was playing slow before, I can't I can't wait to see what happens now that we've got now that we've got flipped karma, flipped Seraphine on the board. Oh, you're just losing the karma? Wow. Wow. Okay. That's insane. I think this game is ultimately why I have such a disdain for the Karma set deck and Constructed. It's like you can run into so many of these spots. Like if they're doing the thing to where they kill you with set, it's like when you've got set on board and you're clearly just generating the big showstoppers over and over again. Like those games are fine, but you can get into a lot of these games to where they have Karma on board and then they're just dirtling for years and years and years, and you've probably lost the game, but you can't quite concede because you're so close to not losing. And that's how I feel like you get into a lot of spots with that. Like as we're in this game, to where opponent has a flipped Karma and a flipped Seraphine on the board, you should never win this game. Like the chances of winning any game where there's a flipped Karma and a flipped Seraphine on the board should be like 1 in 1,000. And like I feel like we've probably just done it here, but that's the way that it feels very often in Constructed, and I ultimately don't have a problem with the power level of the deck. It's just that they put you in those miserable spots, and you have to decide. It's not making decisions about the game. It's kind of like, do I want to be held hostage for 15 minutes? And it just makes me go, meh. But all right, we managed to win that one against all odds. The flipped Karma, the flipped Seraphine, not enough to stop that large, what's her name? The large Nora. All right, what do we got here? We're up against the Sun Disk. I like what you're about, my dude. Let's hang on to the Vulpine Wanderer. Make sure we have something to do here in the early game. And I'll go off to the races. Sun Disk is always scary, always scary. Their card quality has to be pretty low, as we were talking at the very beginning about all of the iterations of Legion Rearguard that you can play. You start to get down into the dumpster pretty quick, and I feel like there are at least a lot of ascended champions like Renekton living in this thing, but it strikes me as they're going to be playing a lot of bad cards. Though.
I do not break rules, I bend them slightly.
What you got for us, Wandering Shepherd? We want to go for this the scout in action. I think that's okay. Opponent does get the free hook into the Wandering Shepherd now, but that's okay. Alright, what you do in action? See if he's got a spell here. We don't have any responses if he does, so Quicksand or whatever, very easily take down the action, but if he gets to start running wild here, it's going to be fantastic. So who do we want to end up dropping this turn? I guess we got to wait and see what unit opponent drops, but we have the choice to either bring in an aloof or go for the Grumble Slug Nora. And I guess the spot to kind of think about with this is if we can maybe win the game on turn 6 behind a Buried in the Ice. And that kind of leans towards me wanting to play things like Grumble Slug. So if we draw a 5-drop next turn, we can just play the big unit instead of having to get things like the aloof on board.
Oh, sure, take your time.
I think I kind of like just getting this Nora on board as well. Okay. We'll continue down this path.
Home is just around the portal.
In and out.
Just let them sleep.
Hug it out.
Got a trick in this combat. Oh, Hourglass. Okay, sure. Yeah, so I don't think we're going to be playing the Buried in Ice next turn. I mean, we could, but It it doesn't really do enough, I don't think. We can wait for a bigger one.
More hands make quick work.
We made it. Yay. But our stuff
All right, we get Curse of the Tomb. Opponent loses Renekton. A bit of interesting information there, knowing that the most expensive card in his hand cost 4.
just kill me.
Could be good. Happily take a combat trick out of hand to just wear them down. I mean, their hand has to just be so low value at this point, right? You've got 3 cards that cost less than 4. I guess it could cost 4, and then action was the card that was just removed with it, but
This is justice.
it's good to me. So the sequence I'm going to look to do here is we'll look to get the Priestess down this turn, and then we'll Buried in Ice on the opponent's turn. Try to clear out their board and kill them with an open.
Our faith, our future in one.
There, getting the shutdown with the Hierophant. Okay. Off we go. I was thinking, let's attack with these bad units and try and chip down the Hierophant a little bit, but that doesn't seem that great. Oh no, man, we should have thrown away some of these units just to try and get the space out for the Priestess. I don't like this anymore. I don't like what we've done here. I think we're stuck playing the Gift of the Hearthblood. We'll draw one of our equipment and then we can just go ahead and put it down, but that was definitely a mistake. I don't want to actually like cast a champion next turn.
There once was a Yoda who got lost in a puddle.
Sloppy, sloppy, sloppy.
Run from absolution.
I think we're still okay here, but that's not an excuse for how bad that was. We want any of these? Ancient Yeti is just kind of expensive at this point. Spirits Unleashed doesn't kill anything. I don't think we actually want any of these cards. I guess I could see an argument for picking up Zillion. He gets a predict, and he's bigger than all the opponent's board. All right. All right.
Talk is worthless. We are what we do.
Whew, being sloppy out here. I mean, we're still in pretty decent shape, but not an excuse. Maybe we'll get to throw away some units here and get the Priestess on board.
What was theirs is now ours. Villains beware.
Yeah, I guess we're ask and you shall receive, huh? Ask and you shall receive. All right. It looks like a Scrying Sands onto action. That's fine.
To our future.
All right, Priestess, put in the work. Get that Trendamere out here. Let us get the big OTK going. All right. Who you got for us? Trendamere, nice. So let's let's have a little bit of fun, huh? Give him a little bit of scout. Maybe we'll give him a little bit of double damage. There's certainly some ways out of this, right? You can have a quicksand or something, but it's gonna be tough. Hopefully he's just trying to like throw health in front of him. That's why the Azir's coming down.
Follow my blade! You dare!
It's down to 4 mana at this point.
Is justice.
You can still quicksand out of this.
Hug it out.
But ideally, we'll get to see the quicksand before we drop the curse. You want any of this stuff? Like at this point, all I'm really worried about's like the sun disk popping, and I think this gives us a way that even if he pops the sun disk, we can still win the game on the next turn. Ooh, all right. Sometimes it doesn't matter how sloppy you are. You just get those scout and double damage Trendemeers on the board, and that's all you need to win a game. GG. All right, next battle. Man, there was the sad news here in recent days. If you're a follower of poker, Doyle Brunson died a couple days ago. He put together. I don't know if it's fair to call it like the most influential book of all time on poker in the Super System or Super System 2, but it's arguably in the top. I shouldn't say it's arguable. It's easily in the top 3 of the most important pieces of poker literature all time, and it's probably had an influence on literally millions of competitive gamers. And so it's kind of easy to forget that that poker can be kind of considered into the competitive gaming space. It's not a digital card game that the children are playing, but the idea very much fits. And it's interesting, like the way that the media kind of changes over the time. Not like the news media. I'm talking in terms of the way that you ingest and learn and partake in your content. And back in the old days of doing book reading, that was just like what you had. There weren't these, like, you couldn't just like pull up YouTube and watch coaching videos from the best players in the world. You had to just like go to the library and pick out a copy of Super System or get a copy of the Fundamentals of Poker or something, and it just was wild. There's no one in the course of gaming, I don't feel like, has had such a far-reaching impact in terms of like a piece of coaching literature than what came out of Super System. And so it was a definite loss for the community having Doyle go. I think I read that he retired in like 2018. So it would have been maybe 5 years ago, but it was wild that he had such a run. And it's very interesting if you read about his old days of playing in home games in Texas and eventually getting ran out of the state and running off to Vegas. So it's kind of wild, all of his stories and everything.
Astounding curiosities lie ahead.
The other thing, like thinking in terms of poker, that really kind of gets me is when you see like competitive gaming in this space. I don't know what you get for winning like worlds in Legends of Runeterra, but it is like such small change compared to any amount of money that lives in the world of poker. Like it's wild how much you have these like incredibly smart people playing games like Runeterra, and then there's just like so much money available in poker, and it just dwarfs it. But people still devote all their time to this game. It's like, to a degree, you like to think in your head that winning is everything and that's all that matters. But if that was all that matters, you'd be sitting at the hold'em tables, just grinding it out. I can tell you from personal history, it's not as fun as it sounds. Just sitting in the fucking casino for 50, 60 hours a week, it's not fun. It's not fun at all.
Nothing's tougher than a troll.
I had a real struggle that like I played poker for a living for a few years, and I know it may be hard to think that you're capable of doing that if you've watched me play Runeterra and see how terrible I am at this game. But when you're playing poker, the idea isn't to be the best in the world. The idea is to be better than the people there at your table. And once you kind of get that thought and figured out in your head, then you can kind of understand a little bit better that just because you aren't the best player in the world doesn't mean that you can't go out and accrue a very reasonable amount of money and That's what I was doing, and it just like I played online for quite a bit. Then the online poker got taken away from us, and then let's pop Zoe's Spell Shield. I don't think we're going to be able to answer her before she flips, but we might be able to say Entomb her next turn and then kill 2 turns from now. I lost my train of thought. We gotta get back in and focus on these games. But no, it's a sad day for the poker world and the gaming world in general. Losing Doyle. But one of the things that actually did kind of blow my mind in terms of I went on this kick for a little bit. There's a golf documentary on Netflix. I don't remember why I watched it or what it was called or why I was so interested in it. But like the parallels between these dudes playing golf was very similar to kind of competitive card gaming, and I was kind of blown away by. The similarities, but like the thing with golf is it's been around for like 160 years, and that's why you see in large part that there's so much so much going on in the world of golf, is they've had that kind of time to come in and develop the scene, and that's just not something you get coming out of competitive games. Like computers haven't been around for that long, and so it's wild that that's the way that it they're able to get so many people together. All right, though, with this game, we're focusing back in. We're going to come back and get this. Next turn, we're going to Ice Pillar, flip our Trundle, and then we're going to put a Papercraft Dragon on him and win the game with that. So I think we should be fine. Opponent has this Lifesteal Husk. I'm not entirely certain if the Lifesteal spreads across all of their units, but we have a few ways around it either way, and so I think we're going to be safe here. So we can... maybe just have enough Overwhelm with double striking Trundle. If not, we can potentially kill off a unit that's getting blocked by whatever his lifesteal unit is, and maybe take the game down that way. So let's see. Void Blaster gets all those abilities, he gets lifesteal, and then spreads it to everybody. Okay. Let's get him, Trundle. Opponent says, uh-oh. Uh-oh, that's a Papercraft Dragon. It's alright, so he's dropped down to 2 cards in hand, or 2 mana, so we can't Quicksand us anymore. That's good to know. Cool. Oh, coming into Zoe. That's not nearly enough. That's not nearly enough. Huh. What are we gonna do now? So you can gain like 20. There's no getting around that. Does this even kill Zoe? So she dies, right? But he gains health on the transaction. I think that's just where we gotta be. And then next turn we'll try and after this, we'll predict and see if we can't find another way to get in front of one of these units. This game should be done at this point. Not being able to gain health here was a pretty big... Or not being able to OTK with Trundle was a pretty big deal, but... Sometimes if you just draw enough ridiculous shit, you can make it okay. So he's going to open attack on us, and then we can maybe get this. Right? We got the Harsh Winds. Voidling comes in with Tough. Okay. I think we're okay, right? He's got to just have like another card. I mean, I guess if he invoked into something really big, then he would have had that potential, but... Alright. Drop a little Harsh Winds. See if we can't do this now. Star Shaping doesn't do anything. At least on this board. He gets to gain health, sure, but he can't play any of the cards off of it. Okay, okay. Are we doing it?
They have suffered long absent my care. How frail mortality, how impure and wicked.
We're just attacking with everybody, right? We could play the Merciless Hunter into the Mahari. It's like, even if Mahari gets a bunch of stats, is that so bad? Like, if he plays whatever card he just invoked for, I don't think that's even any good. So let's do this. Let's replace a unit. Let's put the Fearsome onto Mahari, and then we'll hook the Mahari with Trundle, and maybe that will be enough to finally end this one. Maybe. Oh no, is he going to obliterate us? I didn't stop to consider what happens if we get supernovaed. I mean, I guess we have Rite of Negation in hand and we can stop it, but...
We cry out, no more
Oh, man.
no more demons.
Look at that, look at that. He's trying to kill his own Mahari. Not today. Not today. Say no. I'm gonna take the challenge on your shitty unit. Get him for exacties. Oh, that's the sauce right there. Oof. Glad we made it out of that one. The amount of attention paid was very low. GG. Y'all miss that Papercraft Dragon? What a card. What a card, man. This is the time where I'm supposed to talk about stuff, right? We get a nice 10-minute cue. Talk about Doyle Brunson and Poker Days, Super System and the like. And then when the games start, you can talk about the games. Sometimes you get it backwards, you know. Ooh, this is a nice little palate cleanser of an event. I wasn't really in the mood to just like jump back in and start playing a bunch of standard. It's like you get in and you do a lot of work to get ready for the Runeterra Open, and then it's over. Regardless of how it went, like even if we had completely won the whole thing, I wouldn't have been like really hype about playing standard after doing nothing but play standard for the past 3 weeks or so. And so it's nice to have that little bit of palate cleanser, something a little bit different with this Singleton format out here. And the new stuff will be right around the corner, man. The changes happen so fast. The variety patch should be here in just under 2 weeks. So get ready. Start playing Eternal, get the variety patch and stuff right around the corner. Okay, so P&Z, Shurima, Bilgewater, something with Jack and Echo and Teemos and the like. I assume it's probably a good cards deck built towards Seraphine. You got it. We'll hang on to our cheap plays here. See what we can do. Aggro Zillion's what's about to be coming at you. He's ready to get on board. Say, Pharaoh's fancier, I can block you. You ain't nothing, my dude.
It's an awesome day for progress.
So what do we got? I'm not completely opposed to the Ancient Yeti. Like, we're a little bit late on it, right? You, of course, would prefer to have it be in your opening hand. But, you know, if we get to pick it up on turn 3 and then on turn 7, we can play it for 3 or 4 mana, however that math works out. I think that's okay. So we'll go ahead and snatch him up. Bringing in the fancier. More than happy to block. This is not by any means a important Zillion. We're not a Zillion deck by any means. This is a cheap unit that can block, that predicts. And that's what Zillion's here for. So if you pick up this deck, don't feel super attached to keeping him on board.
Tick tock.
It does remind me from back in the days of Expedition. The way that I usually tried to tackle Zillion was you would play mono Shurima, and then you would try and pick up Golden Ambassadors and a bunch of Zillions, with the idea being that you know, it's just a very effective unit. Having a 1/4 for 2 that predicts is fine, but having a Golden Ambassador generate a 3/6 unit that gets to come down for 2 mana and still do all that stuff was just a very nice tempo play in a format to where like 3/3s were everything. Having access to that 2 mana 3/6 was quite a big deal, because otherwise the Zillion archetype was just garbage. And so you were always trying to assemble things like Ruin Runners, so you would have like Zillion and Ruin Runners and then Golden Ambassadors as kind of a nice early game curve. And that was basically the most effective way to work him. Now, they did have a shitty version of Zillion. This is this is so much information just lost, right? I'm proud of where we've gotten to over the course of the past year playing Constructed, but how many people out there still remember that the Zillion archetype was going to be predict lurkers, and so you knew that if you were getting into Zillion, that you had to stay out of the PNZ faction, otherwise they would try and get you to draft a bunch of the stupid lurk cards. So I'm sorry. Is that right? He was paired in with Echo. I'm trying to think. It was predict lurkers with him and Echo, and you're supposed to have this weird, terrible predict deck, and so you had to try your best to navigate that thing. All right, though. Opponent plays Jack. Not a lot we can do about him. I was curious to see if we wouldn't, say, pick up a combat reel, then be able to get in front of him. Not the case, but it's okay. We're just gonna get blasted here. Yeah, the old predict lurkers. All right, Jack doing his thing. I think we just want to bank up this mana and try and Spirits Unleashed next turn. We can take a few hits from Jack. I'm not too scared of him, and we have Buried in Ice in hand. And so if we can give up a little bit now, play the Spirits Unleashed and maybe get a couple units on board, we should be able to shut him down with a Buried in Ice potentially. All right. Let's start it up. Definitely want to play the Spirits Unleashed first. If we're going to follow up with Vulpine Wanderer as a brash unit, or a unit that can block a brash, and so I think the idea that we're looking for here, at least with this turn, is we'll play the Spirits Unleashed. Jack will go to 4/4. Our units will get the boost. We can put the Darkened Bloodletters onto our Shepherd. Shepherd now big enough to get into combat with Jack, and then after combat, we can look to drop the Vulpine Wanderer as a unit that could just block him. I think that's the way we want to go. I mean, the other option is to just play the Wanderer and equip it with the Bloodletters and pass. Maybe that's better now that he has a 3/3. Okay.
We will show them where their spells can help.
All right, we're ready. See, the time has come around for Ancient Yeti. I felt like he would be okay. Four mana is not bad for a 6/6 Overwhelm, given what we have in our hand and our ability to still either Pokey Stick or Troll Chant, Fish a Whack. It worked out reasonably here.
Behold me how, hairless apes.
Only a few days
And
till
a
the test.
Seraphine. Okay. He should be fairly well shut down here. I mean, he'll attack with Nyandroid. That's not a big deal. But our board is much scarier than his board is now. Let's go ahead and drop the Fish Whack. There's a very reasonable chance we want to just open attack next turn. So go ahead and get loaded up and ready for it. Yeah, definitely. not interested in just dropping in junk constructs. So ideally, we're going to come in, deal a ton of damage this turn, and then 3 bank out of the turn, and then next round we'll look to Buried in Ice his board away and then finish off the game. Might be close enough to doing it. So Troll Chant is going to be good. Get to keep all of our board. His all goes away. We'll try and deal with the Seraphine after combat. I don't want to play the Pokey Stick right now. I mean, we could actually just wait. It's not horrible to hit her with Buried in Ice. I mean, she's going to resummon and give him another 2-cost spell in hand. But... ew. Alright. I don't think we're going to be able to Buried in Ice next turn now, but... oof. Oof. You see that Curse of the Tomb come in and you just gotta... you gotta get ready to wind up and swing. So we'll have 10 mana next turn. We can look to... it's such an awkward spot to where I want to play Buried in Ice, but I also want to play Curse of the Tomb. And if opponent doesn't have any units, then we can't Curse of the Tomb. But... alright. I'm kind of thinking now, it's like, maybe we can do something 2 turns from now. There's nothing to say that we can't maybe play Buried in Ice and then have opponents, or on the turn that we plan on attacking, just play it. Still very reasonable here. I mean, this board is lethal. Huh. I think this is okay. I mean, he's only got the 1 blocker, so let's just put Overwhelm on something else and see how that goes. Right? We can give Overwhelm with the stance swap. Feels like that's a very greedy back alley bar when you're facing down so much stats and you play a 7 mana do nothing.
Rather be sailing, but this looks fun too.
We gotta be popping off this Curse of the Tomb next turn, right? He's got 2 units now. We're definitely gonna... he can't just block our 2 smalls. He's gonna be dead at that point, right? But the idea I think I kind of poorly said on the previous round is it's okay if we take a 3 bank into this next turn with the idea that we're going to Buried in Ice his whole board. And then he plays a unit, and then we get to attack and still have mana for Curse of the Tomb. Like, we could look to pull something off in that sense, but I don't think it's necessary here anymore.
Oh dear.
Here comes a Mystic Shot.
Get shipwrecked.
But see, this is what just happened is what worries me, is he's able to prevent more damage blocking our non-overwhelm units in place of our overwhelm units, and so he has that potential to just get us. But all right, we're dropping the Elixir of Iron. That is the kind of safer play up front. Glory's Call. I don't know what you can get out of that, but if he's obliterating units, I'm gonna feel better about not playing the Curse of the Tomb just yet. Definitely didn't want to be all in on Curse of the Tomb and then have him kill off the unit that's gonna be dealing all the damage. Oh, Syncopate! What a way that would have caused trouble. Oh man, I would have never seen that coming. If we're going to put Curse of the Tomb on a unit and then they syncopate it out of combat, that would have been a use. All right, GG. See if we can finish this last game, this final battle, before my voice goes out. All right, final battle attempt number 1. See what we can do. Been happy with this. I mean, we've pulled off all the sweet combos we've been looking to do. We got the good things with the Priestess going. We got a variety of double damage kills, whether or not from the Papercraft Dragon or from the Gift of the Tomb or the Curse of the Tomb. It's a gift and a curse, you know, and so it's gone pretty reasonably well in that sense. I feel like we've gotten some good usage out of like the Rite of Negations. I like a lot of the ideas and concepts we've brought with this. It's an again, if you kind of understand what it's supposed to be decent and good against, and you can kind of game plan in that way, then it leaves us in a good spot. So if you're just here for the final game, we're under this idea that the aggro decks in the format are probably all pretty bad, but we still want to be decent enough against those, so we have reasonable early game. We're trying to predict into our high-powered cards like Feel the Rush, and then we're trying to be kind of reactive to counterspell the opponent's high-powered cards with the Quicksands and Harsh Winds for the units, and then Rite of Negations and Puzzling Signpost for the spells. Oh, kind of a... we got to call it a control deck. This is as much of a this is as much of a control deck as you're going to see old Bust playing, and so that's what we'll call it. FTP Bust Control. It's got big Overwhelm units in it and Udyr. All right, off to the races. Opponent's got some kind of Seraphine Aphelios number put together. I think we'll be just fine. I'm going to lead off with the Junk Construct here. If he's going to drop Mystic Shots on this turn, I'd prefer him to kill off the, or I should say interact with the Junk Construct as opposed to one of our other plays. I don't feel like there's a lot of reason to drop the Chronomancer at this point. It's like we already have a good curve. We've picked up reasonable interactivity. We can play the Chronomancer on like turn 6 and use it to start trying to predict into stuff then. But I feel pretty good if we get the clears on this board. No high notes, no Mystic Shots, nothing clearing out our Merciless Hunter. Leaves us in a good spot to where things like Avarosia and Hearthguard might actually get to deal damage, or if we've got units spread out with the Hearthguard on board, then we could potentially get in that chip damage if he just has to block our big one to prevent damage. Red card. Sure.
Says I don't share.
Old Steve coming in. Boy, do I not miss Twisted Fate. But okay, this looks good. We'll put Feel the Rush on top. Opponent's not playing any of the counterspell factions, so once turn 9 rolls around, we should be good to drop the big spell. We have plenty of stuff to do up until that point, but again, like if you're playing a normal constructed format, like if you're thinking of playing a deck like Tryndamere Trundle, the Feel the Rush deck like that, when you have access to like 3 Feel the Rushes and 3 She Who Wanders and just like all of the big spells, you wouldn't want to really be predicting into those because you're just so likely to draw them, you know, especially predicting into them this early. But when we only have access to like the singular copy of Feel the Rush, then it's kind of nice to pick it up and ensure that we get it, because there's no, you know, real good guarantees that we'll pick up a spell this good by the time turn 9 rolls around. Not a bad set of dudes. You got a champion. I got a champion. Let's battle. Very overwhelming Victor. And Seraphine. Got all the champions. Sure. Still feels fine. I mean, next turn we can look to Gift of the Hearthblood. That's going to draw Darken equipment. We put the Darken equipment onto the Hearthguard. Still have some pretty good attacks going. Just continue building up a big board. Find our way into this Feel the Rush. I like it. I don't think we want a Siphoning Strike this turn. Thought that thing drew equipment. Who wants to stop and read a card? Huh. Okay.
We follow the old ways.
What does that thing do? I thought it gave... This is just draw a card. Maybe that's what it does. I thought it drew equipment. Heal the Nexus 4. Grant all allies and equipment in your deck. Oh, I thought it only gave the bonus to equipment. Okay. Alright. Let's fight a Moodier. This still lines up pretty well. We'll have 8 mana next turn. And so we can look to play the Ice Pillar, get the 8 mana back. We can look to Siphoning Strike something. Don't care what it actually is. That'll give us the 3 bank going into turn 9, to which we can then Feel the Rush. So it still works out as a very nice curve, even though we had to spend a bunch of mana this turn. Come on. Got another kitty that wants to hang out. She wants to see the final battle. I'm learning this move from her dumbass son. She's just walking circles around me. This is probably why our opponents, whenever they stop and pause without pushing the button, they're probably just sitting around interacting with their cats, right? Come on. That's gotta be what it is. Nobody thinks about the game until the timer runs down. They're thinking about the more important things. Here she is. She says, "What up, internet?" Pepper, I'm the dumb cat of the household. Oh, poor thing. All right, a bit of a bummer seeing opponent go back over 10. Now, if we're able to pick up Nora off of the Feel the Rush next turn, just get that big chance for lethal. Definitely want to try and get this Zoe off of the board, or we'll go for the Victor if he hits elusive in here, but got a very good chance of hitting Zoe. Let's see what lands. Didn't look like an important one. Overwhelm, Regenerate, and Fury.
It's good to be the king.
So we'll see how this goes. Again, have a lot of options if he wants to come at us in combat. We have the Quicksand. Hitting Zoe and Victor off of Quicksand wouldn't be too terrible. Otherwise, you know, again, as long as we end this turn with 3 mana at the end of the day, then I'm going to be pretty happy with it. Looks like with Vi coming in, we're going to need to switch over to Harsh Winds, but same things still apply. I don't want to have to hit Zoe next turn. Right? Or I'm sorry, I don't want to have to hit Nora next turn. We could look to just be all in, say, fuck it. Your Vi can take down Trundle, your Victor can take down the Ice Pillar. But after all this stuff happens, if we end up losing our... or if we play the Feel the Rush next turn and then don't hit Nora, it's not going to feel good. Or if opponent has Hush or something, that's a problem as well. So, I'm okay to take a little slow here.
Hit 'em where it hurts. Trouble coming at ya.
Take forever. Analyzing approach.
Lady Luck is smiling.
Interesting. Has to be an AoE, right? He wouldn't just be attacking with Twisted Fate. So do we just let the Ice Pillar go away and then take down Twisted Fate? I'd like to get this Twisted Fate off of the board. If he flips, he's going to be a problem. I know he's not like that close right now, But when he draws up to 5 next turn, and then if he plays something like Drum Solo, that gets him like super, super close to leveling up Twisted Fate. And so I want to deal with him to a degree. Then we could this turn look to say, instead of going for the Harsh Winds, we could look to Quicksand and say Quicksand, Vi, and Twisted Fate. And then look to Pokestick Zoe. And then he gets to keep the Victor, but we're going to be coming at him with the Feel the Rush next turn. And I think that's what I'm more on board with. So Quicksand. We lose our Trundle. Oh, hang on. If we're going to Quicksand, we don't even have to worry about the Vi, right? Vi's just going to die anyways. So we can Quicksand and then not... We could switch to Pokestick if we wanted. Or I'm sorry, we could just block Zoe if we Quicksand. Oh, fuck. Oh, that was not good. That's... okay. Let's see if we can get out of this one still. My timer ran out. I thought a little too hard on that one. Well, with that in mind, we just have to Pokestick Zoe. She's got to go. Then I think we want to play the stance swap. Give the Hearthguard Overwhelm. We'll see what he does here. If he's got a 1-mana way to get a point of health, we can switch to we can switch to Ram Stance, but that was definitely definitely wanted to be playing a spell in the middle of the combat there. Opponent says, "Oh fuck, Bus must be thinking real hard if he's gonna if he's gonna be taking that long." All right, I think this is still okay. But yeah, that was that was certainly not ideal. But we got the Zoe off of the board. Again, got a pretty good chance to hit Nora in this space. Right, we got a 25% chance and a 33% chance. I think that means you hit like 75% of the time once you put all that math together. She comes down, she should definitely be ending this game. Our other hits aren't as good, but they aren't bad. I mean, Tryndamere would be fantastic. He's not big enough to threaten those lethals at this point, but Tryndamere plus a Nora plus this overwhelming Hearthguard would be pretty close. All right, who did we hit? Zillion and Nora. Okay. The Celestial Trifecta. I think he's going to be digging for that Crescent Strike, and he snapped off the low-cost one, and so wouldn't be surprised to see a bit of stunnage coming in. How bad are these Seraphines close to flipping? You gotta start to worry when they've got both the Seraphine and the Victor on board, working out their combos together.
Yes, of course.
And a Star Chart. Okay. Oh boy. Here it comes. Here it comes. And the Trickster. Found a blocker. Okay.
Today we fight as one.
That was great.
Alright, there's the Seraphine flip.
Bring it.
Now we have to worry. Shit's gonna get crazy. I think we might still be in a reasonable enough spot to win this, but much like that Karma game earlier, when you're in spots like this, the game should probably just be done. But we do have a good reactive element in the hand with the Rite of Negation, and then we can try and kill one of these units kind of first thing next turn.
Another brilliant design.
Alright, so I'm just going to go with the Siphoning Strike. I don't think we have to worry too much about the combat here, but again, as we kind of said in that Karma game, as you come out and do stuff like this, it may not be enough to kill the unit, but you ideally get them to react hard enough to where you're able to still slow down their game plan enough to where the remainder of your deck will be able to get the kill. And so it's going to be a struggle here, right? He's got the Song Spitter along with the Seraphine. He's going to get to chain off a bunch of spells, but hopefully he's just having to be pretty reactive here. And while he may save his Victor, he's not going to have that big crushing blow he needs to finish the game off with. Or maybe he just drew a bunch of garbage, He got that Frostbite card that we had to read 5 times and still did it wrong. All right. No responses. Victor has been removed. He's got to go back to paying the full price for his cards. What you gonna do, Seraphine? Get to double all the spells? Scary stuff. I'm curious with next turn if we want to actually come in and drop a Naka. It's like we're at the point of the game to where if we end up banking mana, if he just ends up passing the turn this turn for whatever reason, then we could potentially play a Naka and have the mana behind to play a Rite of Negation. So there is a bit of merit and potentially not open attacking. Because like as this board stands, he really just needs one card, right? So say he gets to block Zillia and he has one card for Nora, then we aren't really threatening lethal anymore. Let's drop in the Anaka and see where that gets us. It can be, trouble, right? If he's got a card that we need to counterspell right now, it's not super ideal. You really want them to be in that space to where they're spending, like 3 and 4 spells in the middle of combat. Looks like opponent rage dropped that phone right into the toilet, so I think we're able to pull this off now. But I think that line of thought makes sense, right? As to where if we get into combat, opponent blocks Zillia and he has some kind of answer for Nora. Say he picked up a Hush or something, and he's able to stop her from dealing damage. Then we're in a real bind if he gets to untap again and still have the Seraphine on board. So I think there's a lot of merit in adding a Naka, especially when we have so many just kind of like expensive cards in our deck. I know we hit a 2-drop here, but hitting something like Ruin Runner or Hearthblood Mender gets you a very expensive attacker on board. All right, though. GG, well played. A nice 6-0 set of games. We can pull this deck up and talk about it a little bit more. And so, I mean, overall, I was pretty happy with this deck, right? We played against pretty strong competition along the way. A lot of those people were in the mid-masters and in the 200 and 300 ranks. And so we weren't playing against the lower tier of opponent that you may come across in these gauntlets. And we had a pretty good run, even with this tough competition. And so I really like the kind of thought and idea that we have going into a lot of this as to where, if you're going to be coming out and try to do big, expensive, and powerful and flashy things, you want to be doing that on your own, and right? That's our Feel the Rush and our Priestess and the like. But it's also nice to be able to draw those cards with some consistency, and so we have this predict element to the deck, but we're also playing a handful of ways to kind of respond to the opponent. And so with those puzzling signposts and Rite of Negations and quicksands and harsh winds and the like, we have a few ways to shut down a Feel the Rush or shut down a Buried in the Ice or shut down whatever big 10, 12 mana spell your opponent's trying to play. And hopefully, if you're getting into a battle of just playing big, ridiculous cards, you get to play 2 big, ridiculous cards. Your opponent plays 2, but you counterspell 1. Being up 1 ridiculous card is hopefully enough to help you win the game and take it down. And so, yeah, overall, I was pretty happy with the numbers. I was happy with the the double damage aspects, the kind of blow you up out of nowhere aspects we had to this deck. I never really felt like we had too many cards in our hand or not enough cards in our hand. That's one of the problems you can run into, as to where, if it's turn 9 and you have 9 cards in your hand, then something probably isn't going exactly right. And so I feel like a lot of the numbers and a lot of the things that this deck worked out, even though we didn't have tons and tons of reps with it, given that this is such a short-term format. But nonetheless, good stuff, good games. I had fun with that. I hope you did too, because that is going to do it for us today. And so hope everyone enjoyed the video. Hope you maybe learned a thing or two along the way, and you had a good time watching. So this is Bustin' Me. Thank you for being here.